So tonight, I'm announcing that the Department of Labor is developing an emergency rule to require all employers with 100 or more employees that together employ over 80 million workers to ensure their workforces are fully vaccinated.
2 weeks ago, information came out of Israel. This information was very useful. We found out that the jab saved a bunch of lives. You know, there was a bunch of vulnerable people that it kept from, seeing their demise. We also found out that, well, those people who receive the jab tend to be a little bit more susceptible and vulnerable to other viruses and diseases and illnesses going forward. We also found out that those who naturally overcome COVID 1984, well, they tend to do the best. Upon receiving that information, I got excited. I was like, yay, my government's gonna acknowledge science and we're gonna move forward in a positive direction. Apparently I was tripping. That's what I do. This week, Sleepy Joe told everybody that they had to get the jab or lose their job.
Yours is a fascinating tribe. Even now you are defiant. In the face of annihilation and the presence of a god, it isn't wise to stand against Millionaires. Imagine what horrible fate awaits my enemies when I would gladly kill any of my own men for victory.
And I would die for anyone.
Your Athenian rivals will kneel at your feet. If you will but kneel at mine.
You are generous. As you are divine, O King of Kings. Such an offer only a madman would refuse.
A year ago, Pelosi and those, they told us every day that they couldn't mandate, they couldn't force, they couldn't make anybody participate. Last week, without legislation on the books, without science backing him, he's forcing the jab on everybody. This week I watched a lot of sad YouTube videos. I watched nurses who were heroes 6 months ago be escorted off the property. I watched doctors fired, losing their retirements and pensions. I watched a bunch of sad stuff. I watched a law ethics professor of 20 years, wonderful woman. Her ethics wouldn't allow her to take the jab in fear of her own safety. And then when forced to do so to keep her job, she had to teach her students what ethics are and stand up for herself. And well, her career was taken from her. I did see a winner though. There was one winner. There's a law professor over at George Mason University, right down the street. The university decided to mandate decided they were gonna mandate Convid, and he took him to court over it. And due to the fact that the science proves that his natural immunity makes him safe and non-threatening to students and staff, he won his case.
Getting COVID, but the reality is now I do have COVID, and it's very clear that once you have COVID and you've recovered, you've got natural immunity, and the evidence is clear now. It used to be that it was at least as good as vaccine immunity. It quite clearly now is better than vaccine immunity, as we saw in this study that came out from Israel this week. that showed that those who have been vaccinated have a 13 times higher risk of infection, 27 times higher risk of symptomatic infection, 8 times higher risk of death than somebody with natural immunity like me. And so I was very careful. I got my antibodies tested. My immunologist said my antibodies level was comparable to somebody who had just been vaccinated. And so I don't need the vaccine in order to protect myself or those around me. And the final thing I'll say is the evidence is also very clear that those who have had COVID and recovered are at not just the same risk of side effects as anybody from any vaccine, but we actually have an elevated risk of side effects. So it really is all of, none of the benefits and all of the risks plus more of somebody who might actually benefit from the vaccine. And so based on that, I argued that I should get, based on my natural immunity, my demonstrable natural immunity, I should be exempted from the university's vaccine mandate.
Now that's important, because that is just further evidence that this is wrong. Now, where am I going with this? I've said a bunch of things. I've said I've seen some sad stuff. I've seen one winner. I thought, this government was going to get on the side of science. They didn't. This can only lead one place. This can only lead one place. Court. Everybody's going to court. Everybody's going to court. And bankruptcy. We watched small businesses get crushed in these last couple of years. Sleepy Creepy Joe just forced big companies to mandate the jab. I do not see how this doesn't spawn lawsuits across the board. And if the people who make these lawsuits file these claims, I don't see how they lose. And these big companies, well, they're going to have to pay. Thus bankruptcy. So is this the next step in the sinking of the ship? Is this the course? We're going to court, everybody's going to court, and then bankruptcies? Am I wrong? Is there something I'm missing? Is there? Because I don't see how at the end of the day, do the big companies sue government when they lose and they look to blame somebody for, their actions? Yeah, I don't know. I'm curious. What do y'all think? Is this just one big pile of lawsuits? Let me know.